Friends, hello and welcome to my channel TechGuruSpeaks. Today I would like to describe a new topic of Java programming that is called Java generics. This concept has made a revolutionary enhancement to the core Java language. Now we'll explore this concept. Basically, generics concept in Java allows the programmers to pass data types as parameters to classes like values are being passed to methods. It ensures type safety of objects and provides compile time checking. So there is no need to typecast the object. The term generics basically related to the concept of generic programming in Java, and it denotes parameterized type. That means the parameterized types that we can use here with respect to classes, interfaces and methods, in which the type of data upon which they would like to operate is specified as a parameter. Now with generics concept, it becomes easier for the programmers to create a single generic class, and that will automatically work with different types of data. Just have a look at the signature below. Say for example, we can have a class definition like this: the class keyword at the beginning followed by the name of the class, then within angle bracket, so that is the parameterized type, we can have a type parameter list. I have written here type parameter, but basically it can denote a list of type parameters. Then comes the class definition, and within the curly braces we will put the code in the class definition. So it is the syntax of generic class in Java. Now we can also define a generic method that uses one or more type parameters of its own. The signature of a generic method is like this. First comes the type parameter within the angle bracket, that means the type parameter list itself. Then comes the return type, then comes the method name and the list of parameters of this particular method, and then we can have the body of this method within the curly braces. So that is the syntax of generic class and generic method. I have also told that this particular concept, I mean to say the concept of generic class is also say extended to the concept of interface. Like this parameterized type concept, which is basically the feature of generic programming, is applicable to classes, interfaces and methods. So now we are going to demonstrate this particular concept by using the programming implementation. And now for demonstration purpose, I will use the NetBeans IDE 12.1, which is one of the most popular IDEs for Java program. So let's see what we can do with this particular programming example. So now we are going to consider the Apache NetBeans IDE 12.1. So now first I will create a class that is basically a kind of generic class, and it would like to deal with any kind of data type. So first I need to create this particular class. So suppose the name of the class is generics demo. So it is the name of the class. So first I will eliminate the unnecessary lines. So first I need to define the generic class. Suppose the name of the generic class is generic, and it is having a type parameter which is capital T here, and it is basically written inside an angle bracket. Basically we can provide here any term like T, E, any letter or any particular parameter can be passed here. It is not that T is always fixed. I can write here E, Z, anything we can write here. So basically it will denote a type parameter for this particular class. So in that sense it is a generic class. So now T is the type parameter here. So I can have an instance field, so which is of type T. So it is an instance field, but it will be of the type parameter that is actually t. So it is an instance field of the generic class. So instance field. So then we can have the constructor of this particular class. So now we are going to create the constructor here. So this is the structure of the constructor. So now we are going to create an say instance method. So it is basically the constructor. Then comes instance method that returns an object of type t. So it will be like, so the return type is t here. Suppose the name of the method is get object. So it will be like return obj. So since we have already done this initialization by means of the constructor, so obviously we can use it. So it is an instance method. Then we need another instance method that prints type of the parameter, that is basically t. So let us define this particular instance method. Suppose it is named public void print type, and now we are having, say for example, system.out.print. Now so we are going to specify the type here. So we can get the runtime class of an object by using the get class method that we already know. So it is basically coming from the object class. So I am using this class, like this get class method here, which is coming from the object class. So I can also get the name, so basically by using the get name method. So in that way it will give you the actually the type of t. Clear? So actually you can use this particular t as the parameter, like parameter to class. So it's a new kind of thing which is the basis of generic programming. That means t can be a variable term here. So it can be integer, it can be string, or it can be any type, like say for example it may be double type also. So now I am going to create different actual type of objects which will be operating on different types of data. So this is the structure. Now I am going to create the main method here. So this is called generics demo. So first I am going to create an object. Suppose it is named ob1. So look at the use of the type parameter here. Here actually t is getting replaced by integer. So remember that it must be a class type. You cannot use here any kind of primitive type. So since we are actually operating on integer, so we must pass here an integer value. So that is why I am passing here an integer value. Say for example I am passing here 100. So it is basically creating object of integer type. Okay, so now I can use this object reference ob1 to basically call this print type method. So it will show its type now. So basically remember that integer is basically replacing the term t. T is a variable term. It is getting replaced by integer class here, and I have also mentioned that you cannot use any primitive type. It must be a class type. So now I am going to do what? I am going to consider this value. Say for example it is the first value. So it will be returned by this object ob1. So ob1 dot get object. So it will basically return an object of type t. So basically it is getting stored here in this variable val1. Now you can also print this value. So like this. So it is basically the value. So it is stored in val1. So then we are going to create more objects. So that is why I am specifying here a new line character. So just I am trying to run this program. So the corresponding output is shown to you, like you can see it here. So type java.lang.integer. So that is the result of this particular method call by using the corresponding object reference ob1. So ob1 is pointing towards the object of say integer type. So actually it is actually dealing, this particular class is dealing with integer type of data. And what is the value? So yeah, I have passed here the value as 100. So it will be showing the value as 100. So in that way, actually by using the ob1.get object, it is basically returning an object of type t, and it is stored in the variable val1 int type variable, and it is getting printed here by using the particular statement like value equal to 100. So now we are going to use a different kind of object. So now we are going to create, suppose a string kind of object. So better to write here, say generic object for integer type. So it will be more prominent, like. So now I am going to use a different kind of thing, like here t will be getting replaced by string. Suppose now I am writing here say world. So it will be now ob2, it will be string, so it will be val2, it will be again val2, it will be again val2. So I have modified all these things. Now you can understand that. So it is basically generic object for string type. So as I have told before, like this particular class can work on different types of data, like different objects. So now I'm going to run this program for the second time. So you can see it here, like it is showing the corresponding type here. So basically I have created here a generic object named uh, ob2. This is the reference, so it is basically pointing towards a generic class object for string type. So if I am calling here ob2 dot print type, it will be showing its type here. So this particular method gets called here, and the value is basically what, because I have passed this value here. So basically the constructor is getting called here whenever I'll be trying to create an object. So it will be called implicitly. Now what is the value? So it is basically returning this particular, I mean to say this method is basically returning the string type of value, because t is getting replaced by string here. So that is the concept. Now I am going to create another object for say double type. So let us define it for double type. Say for example it is of double. So the same thing should be modified here. So now I am going to use here say 227.95. So this is the value. So now it will be ob3, it will be val3, that is the third variable required here, and it will be type double, and it will also be double. So the same concept applies here. So it is actually trying to create a generic object for double type. So now let me run this program third time. So you can see the output here. The first time it is working on integer object, then string, and lastly, that is for the third time, it is basically working on the double type object. So I think now you have got the basic idea. So how to create a generic class here like this. So it is basically the type parameter. So it is applicable to the concept of class. So that is, it is also called a generic class. So the generic class can work on different types of data. So it is basically working on different types of objects like integer, string, and double. So I hope that the concept is now clear to you. Now I am going to write another program for this generics concept that will be now working on generic method. So that is the second program that I would like to demonstrate to you. Say for example, we are going to create another program that is called generic method demo. So all these are user defined name for this particular generic method. So generic method demo, this is the name of the class. So first I will be removing the unnecessary line. So here, in order to understand this particular concept, I will take help from one of the class, I mean to say one of the classes from the collections framework, the Java collection framework, and it is called the array list. So here I am going to create say an object of array list here. Array list basically represents generic dynamic array, I mean to say a resizable dynamic array where you don't have to bother about, I mean to say you don't have to worry about its size. So it's a generic dynamic array and it will be resizable also. So that means the size constant is not considered here. So now I am going to create an object of array list. So array list, so basically I need to import the package. Basically it is part of the java.util package. So java.util.arraylist. So now it is the reference, object reference, and so basically I am creating here an object of this array list class. So it represents a generic dynamic array. So it is basically what? It is basically an object of array list class. So it is representing a generic dynamic array which is coming from the Java util package that represents one of the class from the, I mean to say that is taken from the Java collections framework. So now I am defining a method, and this method will be basically working on this particular array list object. So I will be using this reference, that means object reference here. Suppose the name of the method is add and return. So but first I need to write here the different things, like it will be providing here the parameter list like this. Suppose this is the parameter list. I am using here a single parameter. Then I would like to provide the return type. Eventually the parameter list, I mean to say I am using a single parameter and the return type is same, but that may not be the case always. Then suppose the name of the method is add and return. So this is the name of the method, and within which I need to consider the type T and its reference E and the array list with respect to this particular, say for example this particular parameterized type, because I have already told you this particular concept can be applicable to any class, interface or method. Now I am defining the method that is based on the concept of generic programming, and it is called generic method. So in Java collections framework, these classes are basically defined with the kind of parameterized type, like it can support the parameterized type. So that is why I can provide here the parameterized type. So suppose this is named AL. Now suppose I am going to make it static. So it is a non-access modifier, so static. So since there is no return statement, it is showing error. So now I am doing what? I am trying to use a method that is called add, which is coming from the array list class, which will be adding this element E to this array list, and will also return this particular element E. So that is why the name of the method is add and return. Okay, so just a quick recap. First we will have the parameter list, then comes the return type. Eventually they are same, but it may be different for different instances. So this is the name of the method, then comes the parameter list. So I have got this one. So this is the type, then comes its reference, and I am applying this concept to the, say, array list class also, because it is permitted in Java. So it is name of the reference of array list class. It is actually using parameterized type. So now what I will be doing here, I will be trying to use a for loop. Say for example it will be initialized with 10. It will be basically taking the last value as 60, and I will be equal to I plus 10. So now what I'll be doing here, I'll be trying to store this value returned by this method within this integer type of item. So now I'll be writing here the item itself, that is I. So it is basically performing auto boxing, you can see here. So I is basically integer type, it is getting converted into basically integer. So then comes the list itself, because I have to pass the list according to the syntax of this particular method. So this particular method will be doing what? It will be basically taking this array list, one of its parameters, and it will be adding the specified element onto this array list object. So in that way, every time you are actually considering one iteration of this loop, so it will be adding an element onto the list. Now suppose I would like to print the list, that is also permitted here. So I can also list item, print the list item here. So this is the list item. You can do another thing. Every time you are adding this element onto this array list object, you can also print this list like this. So you are actually checking what may be the contents of the list. So that can also be checked here. So just I'm trying to run the program. So you can see it here now. So list is having this element 10 because 10 is added here. So that is why it is showing this. So then 10, 20, because 20 gets added here. The item 20 has been added here. So then if I am writing here 10, 20, 30, it will be showing here the item that is being added in this iteration 30. Then 40 gets added, then 50 gets added, then 60 gets added. So that is the concept. You can also use this statement here also, like this particular location also. So it will be now written as list. So that will be showing you the item at the beginning followed by the present status of the list. So in that way, you can see that every time the particular method gets called, it will be adding this integer int type element onto this particular array list object, which is basically passed here. So initially there was none, so it will be adding one element at a time and it will be showing the content of this list. So I think this concept is now clear to you, how to use this concept of generic method with respect to Java programming. So in that way, we can use the concept of generic method with respect to Java programming. So it can work on any types of data. So then I have shown you how to deal with the concept of generic programming in terms of classes and method. So in the previous example, I have shown you how to create a generic class. Now in this example, I mean to say in the present example, I have demonstrated you how to create a generic method. Now I will explain you what is the advantage of having generics concept in Java programming with respect to a coding example. And with respect to the array list example, I would like to take here. So first I will be trying to use the array list class without using the generics concept. Then I will be trying to use the array list class using the generics concept. So then you can see the difference, and at the same time I'll also demonstrate you that if I am using the array list class with the generics concept, so it will provide the type safety. So just have a look at the program now. So first I'll be doing what? I'll be just importing the array list. So it is needed because I need to work with the array list object. Suppose we are going to use this thing with respect to the concept of generics and without the concept of generics. First, without using generics, I am going to show you the result. So without using generics, so first I will be creating the array list object. Say for example it is named list1. So there is no concept of array list with respect to the generics concept. So it is uh, used normally, like without using any generics concept. But I think you can remember the example, I mean to say the previous example, in which I have applied the concept of generics with respect to the array list class, because the Java API allows the programmers to do this. So now I'm using this array list class without having the generics concept. So now, since I am not mentioning here any specific type here, so I can add here any kind of, say, name. Say like I am writing here Asia, then say for example I am writing here a different value. So first I am taking here a string value. So the next time I am also taking a string value, say another name of the continent, so Asia, Africa. Then comes, I would like to say add, say for example, say for example int type value. So say it may be, say for example 100. So it is also allowed here, because I am not using the concept of generics. So I am not working on a specific data type here. That is the concept of generics in Java, which actually allows the generic programming concept. So now I am adding here a floating point variable, that is the double type actually. So everything is allowed here. So now I am doing what? I am trying to, suppose, select this element. Okay, so here you can see that what is the type of the element. It is basically string. So in order to access this element, what I have to write here, say it is named item1. So it is basically of string type. So I must write here string, because how can you say identify it? So if I am writing here, say list1, so in order to access any element here, I can use the get method. So get method followed by the specific index. Suppose I would like to consider this one, that means this particular element. But now if I am writing here, so it should be explicitly typecasted, otherwise it will not be showing. Actually you cannot avoid this compilation error. So in order to avoid this compilation error, you must have to provide explicit typecasting. So this is for the element. So here explicit typecasting is required. Okay, so now if I am going to access this element, that means by using get to, say list1 dot get to, so in that case I have to write here the corresponding type, because explicit typecasting is required here. For this one, if it is, say it was 0, it is 1, it is 2, it is 3. So for this particular element I have to write here list1 dot get 3. So here the typecasting is also required. So that is the problem if I am going to use this particular class without using generics. So every time you are going to access a specific element from this particular list, you have to provide explicit typecasting. So now you can actually print this item here, but you will be having that headache of making explicit typecasting. So this is item 1. So it can be accessible, but you need to consider the explicit typecasting. So first I will be showing you the output here for checking that whether it is being able to access this. It's okay, it could be able to access this. So now I am going to do what? I am now going to use the concept of generics with respect to array list object. So now using generics, I will be using this thing. So using generics, suppose now I am using this particular concept with respect to string. So now I am being specific here. I am concentrating on a specific type here. So suppose now I am adding here book. So this is the first element. So this is for list 2. Say the second element is pen, and the third element is, say for example, diary. So in that way I can add many elements according to my wish and requirement. So now if I am going to use this particular statement here, it will be showing you compilation error because it is basically working with string only. So that means what? So it will actually checking this thing. So it will be able to work on the string types only. So if I am writing this statement here, so it will be compiled successfully. But if I am going to use this statement here, so it will cause a kind of compilation error. So causes compilation error. Okay, now I'll be doing what? I'll be trying to access this element. So selecting an element of list 1. Now I am going to select an element of list 2 here. So it is basically for list 2. So if I am going to use it now, say for example it is named as item 2. So if I am writing here list 2 dot get, so it will be done automatically. So there is no explicit typecasting required. So explicit typecasting is not needed. So that means what? By using this generics concept, it will provide type safety of the objects, so is not needed. So this is the idea that I have tried to show you. So now I can print this value also like the previous example. So it will be item 2, but the thing is that you will not that headache like the previous example, because you have to think of the element that you are actually trying to extract or select from the given array list object, and you have to consider the type of the data also, like because you need to consider the explicit typecasting. But here you don't have to worry about the explicit typecasting because it is already been specified that it will be working on string only. It will be working on string only. So that is why there will not be any headache like this. So just trying to show the output here. So you can see this, like here explicit typecasting is required, but there is no typecasting. It will be done implicitly. So it is not needed here. So that is the advantage of having generics concept in Java programming. So if I am using the ArrayList class without using generics, you need to think of the element that you are going to select here from the list, because the type of the element is actually needed here, because you need to perform explicit typecasting like this. But here, since it is working on string type only, you don't have to worry about the type of element. I mean to say the type of specific element. So that is the advantage of having generics concept in Java programming. I hope that you have understood the concept of generics in Java, and it can be applied to the classes, interfaces, as well as with respect to methods. So that means we can have generic class, generic interface, and generic methods. So I think you have understood the concept of generic programming with respect to Java. It is called generics. The concept is called generics. So I think you have been able to understand the concept of, say, Java generics. So now if you like this video, then I'll be requesting you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. So the URL is given here. You will get a lot of useful information on the corresponding website also, that is the TechGuruSpeaks.com, and this is the email ID. You can contact me using this mail ID. So thank you very much for your patient hearing. Have a nice day.